So
But,
yeah, let's have a chat about your art then, if
yeah,
that's cool with
absolutely.
you. So,
Great.
what was your first memory of art? I asked this to every artist, and I find it fascinating.
My first memory was probably when I was, I think, about 2 or 3, and I had come downstairs. It was Christmas, and there was a set of presents laid out. And one of the first things on my pile of presents was a set of paints. And I'd never seen anything like it. It was poster paints, it was watercolor paints and brushes. And I ran to my mother saying, "Look, how excited I am." And she said, "Unfortunately, that's in the wrong pile. That's for your brother, your older brother." But
Oh no.
I just then, obviously, I was absolutely hooked and fascinated and used those paints and just was absolutely excited about the idea of creating things from nothing from a very, very early age. And I think I made my decision at that point that I was going to be an artist.
Absolutely amazing. I love that. What was it like? Those like palettes you get of like watercolor. What sort of
Yeah,
paint was it?
well, it was, yeah, they had the blocks, but also it was a great big set, and I remember it very clearly. It was a big black box which you opened up, and it had poster paints in little jars as well, every color, and it had, yeah, the watercolor block paints, and I think it had some pencils, and there was a pad in there, and there was brushes, and like so. Wow, it was that was the best Christmas ever.
Oh, that's amazing. So
Yeah.
in response to that anyway, so what was your childhood like then, and how did it shape you as an artist?
So yeah, like so my childhood was, I mean, we are always in those days able to get out and just like enjoy the countryside and imagine like practically having a better life and a better lifestyle. We grew up not in the most privileged environment, but it was exciting, and our parents worked hard to try and achieve the best they could. Encouraged us all to go on further education, etc. So yeah, but it was exciting. We spent a lot of time out in the countryside, just dreaming, out camping, like any opportunity just to get out and cycle, play football, like everything and anything as far as that's concerned.
I can imagine Scotland must be a lovely place to grow up.
It's amazing. In those days, I mean, it was mainly countryside. There weren't many cars around that, so it was generally safe. It just felt like a safe place. You would leave on a Saturday, you go out at 9 o'clock and come back at 10 o'clock at night. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, I'm from Cornwall, so I understand.
right, exactly the same. So you have the freedom that perhaps people
Mhm.
don't have these.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's weird just moving to a city and everyone not understanding what sort of country life is like. But
No, absolutely. So what part of Cornwall are you from?
oh, Falmouth.
Falmouth. Okay, yeah, I've been down to Cornwall quite a few times. It's a beautiful county.
Yeah, it is, but I can imagine in the same way it has its peaks and
Yes.
most of the year is a bit depressing. But I think that's why a lot of people there turn to art for
Uh-huh.
that exact reason.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. We're also surrounded by beautiful, inspiring things in Cornwall. I mean, you've got stunning ports, you've got stunning landscape, So yeah, I can understand it. And of course, in St Ives, they've got the Tate, haven't they?
yes, yeah, I've done some work there before.
Have you? Right. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, no, I did like I helped with some exhibitions and stuff down there, but yeah, no, it's great. St Ives is really beautiful.
Yeah. No, it is. It is.
So for people who have never seen your art before, how would you describe it in like a sentence? Really hard question.
It's a combination of like illusion, abstraction, like photorealism, and color and light in one sense.
So and who are your top sort of inspirations? Obviously, Andy
I
Warhol
think
probably.
when I was growing up, I was massively interested in Renaissance art, Dutch masters, and I think I honed my ability to draw based upon just replicating like old masters in a way that like I tried to be so close to the original. And I learned all about color, mixing color, very specific colors, proportions, etc. Um, and then some of the Dutch masters, like I'd look at very surreal imagery from Hieronymus Bosch, for instance, like created in a
Hmm.
time no one was painting like that.
Yeah.
Most people in those days were backed by the church, who would like indulge in artists to create religious iconic pieces, basically. So when you looked at like the abstractions and the surrealist approach that people like Bosch took. It was just quite fascinating, actually. But then, of course, as I developed, like more contemporary artists appealed, obviously, Andy Warhol, big influence. And I think it's important being an artist living today that we can record what we are about, and what we recognize as being like 2024. So I think as a pop artist, a popular culturist, based on art, it's important to be aware of what is around you and how we're
Mhm.
developing, how we're moving forward, etc.
I find that really interesting because another artist I work with called Nathan Bowen, he does a lot of comic stuff, and I know you
Right.
both do. And
Yeah.
one of his biggest inspirations is also Bosch.
Really? Right.
So
Okay. Well,
yeah,
interesting.
maybe there's a
Yeah.
theme here.
That sounds like it. I think you've got to look at the whole history of art and understand like why what possessed these characters to be able to paint the way they did and record quite demonic things, within like their environment. So they were probably more true to themselves based upon what they were doing at their time in life and their existence, basically. So that's to be highly regarded, basically.
You studied art at, was it Glasgow School of Art?
So I did some there, and then at Duncan of Jordanston in Dundee, I completed
What
my degree.
what was your time like as a as an art student?
So yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, I can't say that I possibly learnt anything. Maybe I'm sounding a bit ungrateful, but I don't. I think it gave me 4 years to just develop what I was able to do. I don't think that any of the tutors offered me any great tuition. I mean, I naturally developed without the inspiration from other people around me. But I was aware of what other people were doing, of course. But it gave me 4 years just to, enjoy like the freedom of being a student without the pressures of trying to find a job or earn money, basically. So it was invaluable in that sense. It really was. And of course, I made a lot of very good friends, some of whom are still doing what they're doing. So yeah, that's good.
If you could go back, would you change it? Would you pick something different or
No, I wouldn't. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't change anything. And I'm not saying that everything has been good because it certainly hasn't been. Like any other artist, you've got to be able to struggle, get through the difficult times, and come back stronger. And if that's the only thing you want to do, you've got to be prepared for some of the worst times in your life. But again, I wouldn't change anything.
wow, that's really inspiring. Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because I often artists I talk to have been to art school, and I've had like such a array of different things, and I think the consensus is often that like I wish I learned how to market myself. Like I wish I took marketing or something, so then I could still be an artist and do that off the back of it.
I mean,
But
I
yeah,
think I think with maybe I don't know now, but I remember we got some insight into how to look at your product because that's art is a product like anything else, and be aware of what you need to do in order to maintain, your life and lifestyle through the sale of your work. So there's a slight insight into that, but also I think some people have a natural like ability. I was selling paintings from the age of 8, probably 9, 10 throughout school, basically. Like so, I was gradually learning the process of how to deal with people and the idea of how to put yourself out there and not be afraid to say or refuse anything, basically. Because even if you were giving what art away to a potential client for nothing, you don't know who's going to see that work. So everything had to be looked upon as being a potential opportunity, and that's how I developed my business, basically, my ability to carry on selling paintings, and always been very excited and excitable about any possibility, good, bad, or indifferent. I just kept my motivation very, very strong.
talking about your art, so your pieces like have loads of different layers
Mm-hmm.
and invite the viewer to interpret what each of those layers mean. Can you talk us through your sort of process of where you start with a piece, where you start, what you start with, and then what layers then form on the back of that?
So the idea of layers is just an absolute illusion because it's basically just the difference of based upon tone, color, and light. So it's like if you're trying to paint a bottle, a glass bottle, for instance, and you can see the transparency, what exists behind that bottle. So you basically are changing the colours in order to create the illusion of a transparency. They're not transparent at all, but it's just illusion based on light and colour. When I'm beginning a painting, I always start with the face. I always work the face. I've very quickly, using my brush, I don't draw into the canvas. I just use very quick brush strokes just to identify where things are going to be positioned, etc. And then as I'm painting, I finalize everything. I make it much more, definitive and definite. But it's always a face, because once I've created the face, that gives me the idea that I know what finish I'm looking for throughout the entire painting. And then it's just a case of just choosing the right colours, the right tones, whatever cartoon imagery I'm involving within the piece. I've already mapped that out. So it's a gradual build up, but I don't, for instance, put one layer down, then a second layer, then a third layer. It doesn't work like that. It's just different tones of colour, different colour changes all the time.
So you use a watercolor brush with an oil paint to create.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's amazing. How did you even develop that technique?
I think it's just trial and error, really. Just finding the right materials that work based upon the type of finish I was trying to achieve. And I think every artist probably does that. So yes, it's constant. And so then it becomes a gradual process of actually just ending with exactly what the right type of brush is, and exactly the right type of paint to use, exactly the right opaqueness to. So it's just comes through experience, I would say.
It's amazing, because I think a lot of people look at your work and think it's a photo at first glance.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you say no, it's painted, everyone's always surprised, and they're like, what? And then they have to take a closer look because there's no brush strokes.
Well, there's no brush strokes, exactly. So it's all very, again, it's all made up of abstract just shapes, really, to give you the impression of the cartoon imagery, etc. There's blending involved in my work, but that's generally only within the figure. So to create the illusion of something that's quite photographic, quite real, but it's only upon close inspection that you're able to actually identify that there is paint there. And again, I use very big magnifying glasses, so I can see every grain of canvas as I'm up close, in order to get the very finite finish that I'm trying to achieve.
Is the whole concept for it all in your head, purely? Are you looking with the magnifying glass and thinking, I know exactly what should go where?
Well, yeah, I'm able to do that now. I know exactly, but occasionally, if it doesn't work, I can just rub that out and just start again, just some turps over it and just take it off. But generally, I know once I've got an idea and I've got my reference material based on the imagery I'm going to use, it's quite straightforward from there. I think I've done it for such a long time as well, so I know exactly. But I'm always trying to push the boundaries with what I'm doing and the ideas behind them. The paintings, and I'm going through a process now of redeveloping some of my ideas and my work, because I think when you stick with it, should be a gradual development, your work, and what you begin with shouldn't be necessarily what you end up with 20 years ago. You should always be trying to push the boundaries, push yourself forward, recreate ideas, because again, my inspiration is everything around me, and that's constantly changing, and today it's changing in such a rapid way, basically. So it's important to keep abreast of everything and keep your ideas fresh.
Specifically, I have a piece behind me, which is Maddie in the middle. Would you be able to talk me through what the creation process of this was like for you?
So yeah, I remember creating that piece. So it formed part of a series of works. And again, in those days, I was using the idea of maybe someone being isolated. In fact, I've just finished a new piece, and it's kind of got the same idea, but it's developed more. So it's based upon putting someone within the middle of a situation and watching how they respond to it, or the thought process, or how it makes them feel, basically. So you can look at maybe the expression on the face. That's always the way that people understand how, like, what we're thinking, or what is going through our head or through our minds, basically. So that, I think that was it was a bit isolation, perhaps.
Hmm. How did you pick it? Like, how did you choose to put Donald Duck behind it? What was the thought process?
So I use these works are almost like a concise history of that individual, that person. So rather than just paint a portrait, which is just a moment caught in time, I can use the idea of laying down something which is part of that person's background, then a middle ground based upon the middle, like part of the life, and then working forward to exactly who they are today. So I use cartoon imagery, which I think relates to the image, to the subject, who's been painted. So a lot of that is just guesswork, thinking what would this person be inspired by? What sort of, like, because we're all grew up with cartoon imagery and cartoons and all sorts of things. So I tried to relate the person to, like, what would inspire that person.
Do you think then, so obviously you said earlier about, you're always trying to change. So do your paintings reflect current changes in society, and especially with social media and digital age blowing up? How has that
They do,
affected it?
yeah, they do. I mean, I'm working a series of works like based on state of the nation at the moment, and again, I'm reflecting on maybe like past ideas within art. I think one of the paintings has the Arnolfini marriage by Jan van Eyck in the background, and the girl in the front is looks like your product of today, basically, but almost lost and almost afraid, and afraid to maybe perhaps show her face. She's hiding behind her hair, and I think that's indicative of the fact that we are, like, there's a lot of problems being caused by social media, especially with younger children, with male, female, and so that was indicative of that idea. Past values, we didn't have the same problems. Perhaps it was a different sort of problems that people had in the past, but now it seems to be a much more serious issue, especially with younger kids, basically.
I think it's amazing that that's something that you like. There's so much thought that goes into each piece that I feel like it's so amazing actually getting to talk to you and like find out more about it, because I feel like most people just look at it and think, wow, that's cool. But there's
Well,
so much deep meaning that goes into it as well.
no, there is. I mean, and of course, like, I'm willing to talk about these things because I think that it's important to me to to create these works. And there's no point in creating something for no reason. There's got to be a real, like, meaning behind it. Not everybody wants to hear the meaning. They're happy just to look and enjoy, which is absolutely fine. But when people do question it, I like to be able to talk. And I like to also keep an open dialogue about the works. It's interesting to get feedback based on what other people think and what ideas that they might feel that the painting suggests. But again, you're right. That's what people see. They walk into a gallery, they don't know the endeavour, and every artist is the same. They don't know the endeavour the artist has gone through to create that finished piece. They don't know the rationale behind it. And it's only upon, like, if they have the opportunity at an art gallery or an opening, to actually discuss these things.
It's something I love about my job is that when people come in, I'm often able to tell them everything about each piece,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that it's exactly why I do my job, and it's exactly why I enjoy talking to you. Is so now that when people come in, I can tell them exactly the thought process, and then they
Yeah,
always look at me and go, "Oh, wow, that makes
yeah,
sense," and it makes me so
absolutely.
happy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's fantastic. That's amazing. But yeah, it's important to, yeah, be able to, if people are interested, to be able to explain the work. And I know that's not maybe always possible, but no, that's great. It's like, sounds like you absolutely love your job as well. You love doing what
No,
you
I
do.
do. I really do.
That's
Do you get negative criticism of your work?
well, yes. I mean, like, as an artist, everyone has to expect. Not everyone can like what you do. So that's, you take the good with the bad. I mean, it's straightforward. But negative comments doesn't upset me. They don't make me feel, oh, I'm going wrong in some way. Not at all. I'm as delighted to hear negative things as I am to hear positive things, and I really truly mean that.
Do you have anything in particular, like something like a funny critique or anything that has
I,
come up?
no, it's been suggested that like the work is very commercial. Okay, and of course it is. Like it's a product of like popular culture within art, basically, and everything around it is very commercial. Everything be, and I'm reporting on that basically through my art. Um, you know, and again, if Warhol was alive today, he would be painting the same things. Like he would be doing similar things that reflect, him living within that period. And it's important that artists do that. And so, yeah, if I want to produce work with a commercial feel to it, that's absolutely fine. But also, what people have got to understand, the deep rooted meanings behind these work takes it so far away from being a commercial painting or commercial artwork.
Specifically, it's the term selling out. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah,
It's kind of like,
it's
yeah,
not selling, but I'm not selling out because like what I've created is a natural development of my art, over the last like 30 years. So I'm just responding to what I see and how I live and what I feel is around me. Um, as soon as an artist puts a piece of art in a gallery, you could argue that they have sold out.
yeah. No, yeah, that's always the thing, isn't it? Is people often wonder at what point artists are doing things specifically for money instead of remaining authentic. But I don't know, you're always so passionate about every single thing that you do. So I find your work wonderful for that reason.
But thank
Uh,
you very much.
I had to ask, so obviously when doing research about you, obviously, is it called the Garch, your
The gap.
house?
That's right. Uh huh. Yeah.
Um, I have to ask, like, it was amazing. You literally put your heart and soul into every part of that house. But I
Absolutely.
I fell in love with the dining room.
Really, if you like that. Okay.
I
Yeah.
loved the dining chairs. I
Right.
thought that was amazing. Like, how did you choose who to put on the dining chairs?
Well, they were actually the images that I created for the Savoy Hotel.
Mhm.
So, I I'm the artist in residence still at the Savoy,
Mhm.
and they commissioned a whole series of art which live within the hotel as a permanent exhibition, basically. And so I decided to use that imagery on the chairs. And it looks like these people are actually all sitting at the table because
Yeah.
their head is over the top of the table. So I thought that's quite quirky, quite funny, but it just suited that room absolutely.
Is there a specific way you pick celebrities?
Um, Not necessarily. I mean, I'm more interested in looking at like shapes and poses and like so yeah, it's like so not obviously when the series I did Lost Lives and Split Personalities, these were based upon musicians who had died prematurely or through like difficult circumstances. So whoever was included in that series were relevant for that reason. So yeah, no, I'm not specifically chasing like celebrities to actually paint them in any particular um, way, as I would say.
Yeah, I loved your Amy Winehouse one. I loved how you were speaking about how why you picked Catwoman for her. I thought that was really cool and empowering. But are there any celebrities you'd be against painting?
Um, it depends on it depends on like the reasons behind like maybe not wanting. Um, I mean, obviously there are political figures at the moment who like certainly like don't resonate well. So I might choose to stay away from them. so,
So we're not going to
so
see a
yeah,
Trump in the near future.
I think we'll see a lot of Trumps, but maybe not for me. No, I don't think so. Actually, many years ago, like before Trump became president, I was dealing with a big group in America, and I was asked to paint Trump, and I refused.
Wow. Are you
So this
glad you
is,
did now?
yeah, of course, absolutely, yeah, yeah. I don't, as I said, I don't regret
No.
anything, good, bad, different. I don't have any regrets. I don't.
Looking back, is there like a particular piece or a turning point in your career where you felt like your voice became clear to you?
Yeah, I think. there are moments that probably every artist goes through, whether a writer, musician, like a painter, sculptor, whatever. There are points where you think, actually, do something. I really do know what I'm trying to achieve now, but achieving it is something different, of course. But I think if you can get to a point where you think you're on the right track, that's almost like a eureka moment, isn't it? I mean, you just feel, yeah, I think I'm doing something that makes me happy, and I feel that my voice can be heard through the imagery I'm creating, basically.
Do you have any favorite pieces that you've painted?
So I don't hold emotionally onto any paintings. I don't, because I think I always want to keep moving forward. And if I surround myself with paintings that I personally feel an affinity for, I think that would hold me back. I'm always trying to look towards creating new work, more exciting based on the previous piece, and just keep developing that way. There's been a lot of paintings I've enjoyed working, of course, and like there's a lot of paintings like I'm proud of course. But equally, I'd rather just keep a very free head and free mind in order to actually create new works going forward.
You've worked all over the world. What was the best exhibition or experience that you've had?
Best experience, obviously, like with two like enormous shows, like in 18 months apart, Bond Street and in Bruton Street in London. That was just enormous shows. Brilliant show was also in the Royal Guggenheim in New York. We had a fantastic experience out there. Hong Kong, yeah, the state of the art gallery. Yeah, these were fantastic experiences. They really were.
You mentioned earlier about the Savoy. I read in a thing earlier that you felt like working there, you had to make a lot of compromises, and you said that you just needed your space to do your art. Is that? Can I ask about why?
There's a story based upon the Savoy which has not been told, and this happened prior to the whole deal being signed, and I'm not sure I'm at liberty to talk about it right now. But
That's
that had
okay.
a very it resonated very badly with me, and I'd gone back to Suffolk and had decided not to progress with this project because of things that happened with the management at Savoy. But I was later on convinced to progress with it, and I was called up by the Evening Standard to discuss this story, which had reached their ears basically, and I refused to comment. It will come out at some point because it's a great story and I'd love to tell it, but
Yeah,
maybe
no,
not.
I was curious because I was reading the articles and it just felt like I didn't really understand why you felt that way. So I was just, yeah, because I could tell it was around an issue.
There
But
was a
yeah, no, I look forward to finding out. But
right, okay, well, maybe at some other point. I
yeah,
will.
that's fine. So we have a lot of your series revelations, and I mean, what was the reason behind choosing to do a Harry Potter series? Was it the fact that you're from Scotland and that's just epic?
Well, I mean, amazingly, I when I was a student, during the summer I worked in Glenfinnan, where the viaduct is basically, and like so I worked there, and just in a hotel, and I painted a mural there. This is in the mid '80s, I think, and it's still there. This mural. So weirdly, I had this like connection with Glenfinnan, and like I was on that train many, many, many times, like when I was much, much younger, before Harry Potter even existed. But there's a guy called Neil Blair who came to one of my shows in London, and he is the lawyer of J.K. Rowling. And Neil was a big collector of my work and had suggested to an agent I was dealing with at the time that would I be interested in working with Warner Brothers on this project. And yeah, the negotiation started, and like, I think 7 years it lasted. So a lot of trials and tribulations through that period, difficult times and exciting times, and yeah, delighted with the end product basically.
Oh, I love them. I think they're iconic.
No, thank
every time I watch Harry Potter now, I'm thinking about your layering as well. I'm thinking about why you picked specific
you.
pieces.
That's great. No,
So
please.
you were with Castle Fine Art when you
Yeah,
did that.
yes, I was with them at the time. So, like, I'd stopped. I broke off that contract about 4 years ago. And yeah, like now I've got the freedom to basically do what I want, and I'm enjoying everything I'm doing.
Is that why you chose to leave the gallery? Was for freedom?
Yeah, freedom, absolutely. Yep, it was. That's exactly why I wanted to leave, and I didn't want to be pigeonholed into creating similar works until, like, I was starting to
Yeah.
hate what I was doing. So, like, I wanted to be at liberty in order to reach out and do whatever I want. And it was like a really good move. I'm pleased about it.
So your images are always have comics as the background. What were some of your favorite comics growing up?
So,
I love
like,
comics, so
yeah, yeah, okay. I mean, comics and cartoons, of course. I mean, like, obviously in Scotland, DC Thompson, they were one of the big illustration houses that created. In fact, they created Superman, um,
Mhm.
and obviously that was then sold to, like, was sold on. But they created like things like the Beano and the Dandy, and these were just great imaginative like comics, basically. But also, the cartoons, television cartoons, like the old school Tom and Jerry and Scooby Doo and things like that. These are imaginative, like, animations, and, like, yeah, they inspired people, and that's why I use the cartoons, cartoon imagery, in order to lay down the foundation of the child, like, within the work, basically,
Mhm.
the inspiration behind that person.
I find that really beautiful. So a really controversial question here, right? I hope you're prepared for this. DC or
Okay.
Marvel?
Yeah, I probably would have to say DC.
I agree. I think their comics are much better, but I kind of
Yeah.
prefer Marvel films.
Yeah, well, the films are better, absolutely. Yeah, but from point of view of comics, yeah, I would say DC. Yeah.
So every artist has their own sort of quirks. Do you have any sort of ritual that you have that's a secret for you just to get you into the creative vibe?
So, like, in my studio, like, I always have to have a very brand new clean palette, and I just use tearaway palettes, which every morning I really have to have all the colors laid out in the same way, same amount, with a certain amount of brushes just all laid out for that day's paintings. And, like, by the end of the day, these brushes are all, like, destroyed because I'm using dilutants, which they're not made for, basically. So maybe 6, 7, 8, 10 brushes a day when I'm painting.
Wow.
So yeah.
If you were to give yourself your own background, if you were to do a self-portrait, what superhero or what animal, I know you did like an insect overlay with Bowie, what would you pick for yourself?
What would I pick for myself? That's a very interesting
Yeah.
question. Very interesting question. I spend all my time, like, dealing with other people's psychologies, and
Mm-hmm.
I haven't thought, I haven't contemplated that. I
That's
have not.
I can't believe you
I,
haven't. I was so
no,
curious.
no, I haven't. I haven't even thought about that because, like, self portraits is not what I do. It's I'm more focused on other people and other people's backgrounds and other people's, like, interests, I suppose, like, rather than focus on myself. If I thought about it, obviously there are things there that really did inspire me. And as I pointed out, things like Tom and Jerry, like when I was a kid, really inspiring, especially Tom and Jerry's, where there was no, it was almost like silent, the equivalent of a silent movie, but the imagination that sparked, dead simple, but yeah, something like that, I suppose. But there'd be a lot of layers there, I think.
Instead, so you say you pick other people. Knowing me for 5 minutes, what would you give me?
It takes longer than 5 minutes to decide. It's like,
Just give me like a guess straight off the bat.
well, you're very much interested in, like you said, cartoons. Who would that be? It's like,
Mhm.
I don't know yet.
Is it too
I
hard?
really don't know. It is very, like, I don't work like that. I don't
Mhm.
immediately just, like, spark and just think, okay, I know exactly. I'll think
Uh,
about it and I'll get back to you on it. Okay.
all right, yeah. I look forward to finding out. So what are
Definitely.
you working on at the moment?
So I'm working on a series of work, as I said, State of the Nation, and yeah, got ongoing series like based on this and the things that are happening at the moment and how I see things developing as well. So yeah,
Is it going to be shown somewhere specifically? Do you have anything set for
so
it?
so yeah, but it will be. In fact, I'm in discussion with a New York gallery at the moment, so we're contemplating that early next year. So it,
If you could collaborate with anyone, who would you choose?
it would have been interesting to collaborate with Warhol. I think that he
Mhm.
was quite fascinating in the way that he created art. He wasn't afraid to steal everything available to him. He wasn't. I think he had about 200 lawsuits against him. But you know, I liked his confidence in that respect. I liked the way that he recorded everything all the time. I liked the way that he took the most simplistic objects and created this idea of like beautiful art. You know, he looked at the world in a very different way. So I think that would have been a fascinating collaboration. I think.
Do you have a favorite piece of Warhol's?
Nothing in particular. I think you know, silk screens are fantastic. The Elvis piece I do particularly like. You know that was quite a fascinating piece that he did. But his silk screens are incredible. You know, they really are simple.
Obviously, I brought up a controversial thing for you earlier. When I was doing my research, I found an article about a gallery who seemed to like have misled loads of customers and also loads of artists as well, but the looks of it. I just
Yeah,
wanted to ask like how your experience was there because you seemed like really devastated by it.
yeah. That was devastating. And I'm still dealing with some of the people who have lost both money and never actually physically received the product. Now I physically signed everything, both the editions and the certificates. I know that they existed, and I have photographic evidence of everything being signed. So I dealt with the publishing house in the same way that all the artists did. So we had no understanding or control as to how they were dealing the work beyond receiving them, I suppose. But yeah, it's always upsetting. Of course, it is. You know, as artists, we want to remain, you know, like pure based upon
Yeah.
how we create our work and how we deal with our work, how we sell our work, how we make connections with clients, and you know that is massively important to us, not to let anyone down. So yeah, when we hear of something like this, you know, it's devastating. It's really, really upsetting. And of course, like it's totally and utterly out of our hands. We
Yeah.
knew nothing about it, but you know, it's happened, and I feel terribly sorry for anyone who's been affected by it.
I think this is also part of the question lots of new sort of artists have is one is working with galleries worth it, and secondly, how do you know if you're going for a dodgy gallery? Because I know loads, I've got loads of friends who are artists who have
Mm-hmm.
had awful experiences in the past with galleries, running off with their work, or especially
Mm-hmm.
when you're young and impressionable and you just want your work in a gallery.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of advice on how to pick?
So, like any other artist developing, you know, I've had similar experiences. You know, like there was a gallery in Ireland who stole all my work, sold it all. Then we're actually in the process of going bankrupt, and they knew that they were. And you know, so things like that are devastating. Of course, they are. I mean, you can do your due diligence, but still be upset by like how galleries deal. I think if you look at the history of the gallery, and I'm sure like everything else, galleries will possibly have some sort of rating based on their background, dealings, etc. So if you do due diligence, perhaps you know like you stand a better chance of dealing with better galleries.
Where can people currently check out your art, by the way? So obviously here, and you mentioned Savoy. Is there any other places that your art is in at the moment?
So I'm in the process of dealing. I've spent the last number of years developing a new series of work, and I'm in negotiation with lots of galleries to actually showcase this work. And I'm hoping to do that just next year, beginning of next year, once I'm confident with the amount of work that I have available. I'm also working towards this show in New York as well. Hopefully, that's going to happen early next year. So yeah, like I can keep people posted on my Instagram account as to where I will be exhibiting these new works.
I'm really excited to see them.
Okay,
So
thanks.
finally, can you end us with one of your favorite quotes?
One of my favorite quotes. Well, it's important never to give up. Always remain confident and always trying to achieve the best that you possibly can.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing to talk to you.
It's fantastic. Thank you very much, Kitty.
It's all right. We'll have to do a catch up at some point, especially when you're getting your work into galleries and stuff in the future. It'd be really cool to actually see an exhibition of yours.
Absolutely.
So I'm
Okay,
really looking forward to it.
I'll keep you posted around everything. Definitely. Okay.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Take care. You too.
Bye.
Enjoy the weekend. Bye-bye. Bye. Good.
If you like this video, please like, subscribe and click that little bell so you get our notifications. Thank you.